Welcome to this first edition of Insights at the Lighthouse. I am sitting at the lighthouse, even though you can't quite see it, but I'm sitting next to this pilgrim shoe, which is very cool. It's been placed here for all the pilgrims coming here to watch the beautiful sunsets. And here's a place where some people have burned off their stuff. There's another place down here, and you see black spots all over because pilgrims have burned off their stuff here. But this will be an answer to what are the three phases of the Camino. And I've shared this numerous times, but I want to make a short video where I just go through this. On day 21st, the 21st I think, on my first Camino in 2014, I sat with an older guy who walked with his almost blind son at an albergue. I was sitting and writing my diary, and we had a conversation, and he had shared this idea of the three phases of the Camino that I think he had talked to, or somebody had shared with him. So obviously that's kind of a paid forward idea, which is cool that it has come to this. And it could also be called the three phases of life. But I want to just share this because it makes sense to me. Nothing is absolute, and this is just to share something that perhaps makes sense to you, and something that can be some sort of a frame for life or whatever. Something I've learned, something that I like to think about when I'm out, walking far, or if I should start a new project or something. It makes sense to refer back to this idea. So the three phases are the physical phase, the mental phase, and the spiritual phase. The first phase is the physical, and I want to put it into perspective of the Camino, the French Camino that I finished here, that I finished walking here this time, because it makes a bit more sense in some way. The first phase is the physical. And to put that into perspective with regards to this journey of the French way, is that when you start the French way, or when many did back in 2014, and also the many I've met now, there's a lot of excitement. You have been looking forward to taking this long journey across Spain for maybe weeks, months, it could be years, and finally you're here. And you know that you are heading out on probably one of the biggest adventures of your life, the biggest walks maybe of your life, and you're very excited. And regardless of if you have trained before or whatever, usually for most people it is going to be very new and very different to walk every day for 30 plus days, or about 30 days, and walk between 15, 20, 25, 30 or more kilometers per day, depending on who you are and so on. But the whole purpose or the idea of this physical phase is that it's very superficial, meaning that it's not because it's fake or not valuable or whatever. The superficial part is because you're not used to any of what you've just started. You're just excited. It's new. It's you're anxious to get going. You're meeting new people who are also excited. There's a lot of, the first day you walk up this mountain pass between France and Spain in the Basque country of Roncesvalles, and you walk and you are being distracted in a really good way by all the beautiful nature and landscape this first day, but also the next days. My experience is that up until about Burgos, the first main city, there's a lot of beautiful nature and a lot of beautiful paths, and it is just gorgeous. And it goes with your excitement. It's really nice to be on the way. It's really nice to be meeting people, and it's just really exciting. But you're not used to walking yet. You have only been walking for 7 days, 10 days, 12 days maybe. And as they say, it takes about 20, 30, 40, maybe more days to get used to something new, get used to a new habit. So it takes time to get used to. It took about 12 days for me to really get used to walking. I remembered, after Burgos, I was like, okay, I'm sort of used to this now, walking in these 20 to 25 kilometers per day. But the physical phase is kind of superficial, but it's a good excitement. It's a motivation to get going, keep going. And the physical phase opens up for the mental phase, what I call the most important phase. It's most important because it has to do with your mind. And if you have meditated or you've done yoga or whatever, when you are in Shavasana in yoga, for example, at the very end, you relax and you are working on not thinking, which is the difficult part, to have your mind wander and have this monkey mind, right? And so it goes with the meditation. And that's why we practice meditation, is to be present with a very, very simple thing as our breath or something like that, or a mantra. And the whole purpose is to be quiet, have a quiet mind, calm down the mind. And the beautiful part about the French Camino is that after Burgos, you walk into the Meseta of Spain, the central part of Spain, called Castilla y León. And for about a week's time, you are walking in a very flat country, and very, all the mountains are gone. You can see them very far in the distance, but they're so far away that you can't really be distracted by them. People are also at a point usually where they want to walk by themselves. When I walked, we were in a group of 8 to 10 people for a handful of days, or maybe 8 days up until Burgos. But after that, I was with a girl and a French guy that I walked with. He was also walking with a girl, and we sort of walked together, the four of us. But after that, after Burgos, there were, a couple of people, they wanted to walk ahead, and a couple of people, they stopped or wanted to, take 2 days off or whatever, or had to leave, or, and so people also began to think about, okay, I'm here for a reason. I want to figure that out. And in addition to that, you go into the meseta of nothingness. There is just so little to be distracted by, which also means that there is more for your mind to sort of go through or whatever. And it is really about your mind. All of a sudden, there's not much to think about or to be distracted by. And that makes you begin to just. A lot of things will just come through, old things like habits, things you're upset about, things you have lost, people you have, have maybe a worse relationship with than you wanted. I'm getting tired in my arm here. And so it has a lot to do with, your thinking. And also a lot of people, they come down with, just wanting to be clear about what they want to do with their life. Or, if they've lost something or left something behind, they want to move on, right? So a lot of that is being worked through at a time where there is no distractions. And when you walk, there's a couple of days where you walk really like 10, 15 plus kilometers where there is nothing. And a lot of people, they call this trip or this part of the Camino the boring part, but it's so important. It's probably the most important part, because that's when that's what you're there for. You're there to work on yourself, right? So that is the most important part, I think. And I love it. I wish there was even less things to be distracted by, because I know how beneficial it is. And it doesn't mean that it's not tough or whatever, because it is. And, things that are valuable should not be easy to do, right? So it's very difficult and tough, and also boring and whatnot. But it's what makes a lot of things come through you. So that, I think, is the most important part. So the first part, the physical part, is sort of you're excited, you're also a bit distracted by all the new stuff you're not used to yet, people, places, nature, all this stuff. Then go into the meseta, the place, the meseta of the mind, I guess you can say, where you have to work on yourself, and you're forced to be facing yourself, your habits, the things you want to work on. Then you have the last part is the spiritual phase. And it's very relative to when that happens, but I think it can happen sort of in circles. There are days where you feel really good walking after a while. There's also days where you feel less, you have to work through things. So I think the mental phase and the spiritual phase sort of goes in and out of the circle, sort of. Sometimes you feel like you'll work through something and you let go, and all of a sudden you feel like there's something you're liberated by, whatever it might be. But the end phase, or the spiritual phase, is really beautiful, because that's when you have gotten used to being a pilgrim. You're used to that you're working through stuff. And believe me, I began to really understand that through my long journey, that this was happening more and more and all the time, because I walked for 5 months. So it was not just 30 days. It was something that all of a sudden, like after 2 months, I was working on something every day, right? So it kept going. So I kept going deeper and deeper on myself. And that's also where you really begin to be more connected with yourself. And you'll see that in the podcast videos, that you just see that I am more confident. I am more together. I'm, just more self-aware. And that's just what happens. You're more connected to yourself, more connected to nature, your journey, what's happening. You are more confident with, your friends and family and whatnot, because you have let go of something. So the spiritual phase is where you just feel more connected to yourself and connected to what is around you and who you're around and all this good stuff. And the interesting thing about the French Camino, or the French way of the Camino, is that you walk into the beautiful part of Galicia, the most beautiful part I've been in Spain, or the place I love the most in Spain. It's so beautiful here. And if you've seen my videos, you will know. So I'll sort of let that be. But that is what is also interesting, that on this French way of the Camino, you come into this last phase of it, regardless of where you are, and it's just beautiful, and it's hard not to appreciate the beauty because you have walked this far. And if you've seen one of the last, I think the video after my day 149, you see all of us was dancing out here because we were just so elated and happy, and we accomplished something, not just on a physical level, but on a mental level. We went through something. We conquered ourselves. We went through something that was difficult, and we met people and we shared it, and all these things, and it just became, that's the conclusion, right? The conclusion is that it's become spiritual, it becomes beautiful, it becomes something you want to share and you feel happy about and whatnot. So it's just really, really amazing how the three phases of the Camino on the French way just makes total sense to both explain, but to put it in a context of something different really fast, for this video not to be too long. If you begin to play guitar, the keyboard, if you learn how to sketch, I tried that once, and so on. If you try a new skill, try to learn a new language, for example, the first part is that if you feel drawn to it and you feel motivated by learning something, you're excited. It's new. But it's going to be difficult at one point, because right in the beginning, it's going to be, okay, I'm excited, the motivation is there for me to be there and continue. But then all of a sudden, you will feel less interested because it will take more effort, because you need to reprogram the mind of learning something new. So there is a point where, you have to go, you have to sort of merge the motivation with the mental part of learning something new. And that takes effort, that takes a lot of work. And that might take a long time, for a skill to develop. You might have to work for 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months to really get good at something. And then you enter the spiritual phase where you feel more in flow. You feel you can speak Spanish better if that's what you've practiced, over the last 4 or 5 months. And all of a sudden you feel more flowy, you feel better, you feel more connected to, you've learned something new, more confidence, and if you're in Spain or talk to people in Spain or whatever, you just feel more, oh, I learned something, I feel more, connected to what you just learned or whatever. So those phases you can always sort of rely on in terms of, and think about, okay, which phase am I in now? Just to get an idea. Okay, I'm in the mental phase, so I need to just stick to it, take the steps, go for it, keep learning, keep studying, whatever it might be. So I think that is what I'll share with about the three phases of the Camino in the context of the French way of the Camino, because it makes total sense that is what happens here. I think to some degree the French way is a bit too short. I think my recommendation would be, not because I haven't walked it, but because of what I've heard from people walking from Le Puy in France. That is also a main hub of starting the Camino. And I will start there next time, one of the next times when I get the chance, because it's just beautiful in terms of what I've seen in the pictures, but it's also that much longer. It gives you 20 to 30 days more of walking, or 30 days, I think, and gives you that much more time to get into depth and get into the spiritual phase, which is really important. But also, when you get into, when you walk for a while, you also begin to get used to being in the mental phase, because there's always stuff coming up, right? Always stuff coming up. But when you get used to that, you always mix through the mental and the spiritual phase faster, and then it makes you more confident and more aware of, okay, I need to go through something, and that makes you less upset, less agitated about being in those in the mental phase, because you are used to it, and you know that when you have let go of something, you become happier or whatever. So I think that is all for now on this topic. 3 phases of a Camino, something that has helped me a lot to understand, or to at least think about, just have it as a mental backpack tool or whatever. So that is it for now. I hope you got something out of it. Please share in the comments what you got out of it, and I'll be happy to respond. And if there's any topic that you want me to share more about, just comment and I will put it in one of the next videos. So with that, make the 3 phases of your life be great. And until then, be well and safe on your unique journey in life.